Howdy, hey folks. In this abbreviated edition of the Wednesday Word, I want to cover something I see a lot in interview sessions with subject matter experts, and that's the ability to ask really good follow-up questions. Now, this is something I've seen happen in a lot of different agency or company settings. We get folks who need to interview a subject matter expert for a topic at hand. Maybe we're pitching a concept, or we're trying to get some news out. We want to get a unique take or angle on something. And a lot of folks, when they go to start this, will put together some big long list of prescriptive questions and then rigidly adhere to it. Just stare at it and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think when you do that, you end up missing some of the best parts of working with subject matter experts or people you're interviewing. So I wanted to dive in a bit on how to actually ask those kinds of deeper interview questions. To start with, it's good to have the prescription to write down where you want to go as a roadmap, but don't rigidly adhere to it. This is where I think a lot of folks end up missing the mark. They get so excited or they get so nervous about the process that they try to put everything into one big old list, and then when it comes time for the interview itself, we're just reading that list over and over and over again, and that doesn't get us anything really interesting. We end up hopping and skipping between topics and ideas too quickly to really drill down and figure out what's interesting or unique about this topic from the angle of our subject matter expert. So it's good to have that list, but don't rigidly adhere to it. In fact, write out a smaller list. I'd have a short one to maybe 5 to 7 questions maximum that cover the key pieces you want to cover in that interview. So that might be the topic, that could be an industry news piece, it could be company news, but have a quick list of those major questions so you know, at least have some milestones in that roadmap of having a conversation. And then beyond that, it's a bit more ad lib. It'll take time to get comfortable with that, but as you practice it more, it will come to you naturally. I think another piece of this is we get so nervous when we're trying to go into this process of interviewing that we don't actually listen to what the answer we're getting from the client or subject matter expert is. We're not paying attention. That's a skill called active listening that we need to train. We do that by putting away that list of questions that we feel like we have to ask and stopping and really paying attention to what our subject matter expert is saying. Now, you should have done your research ahead of time to be aware of what's going on in the industry so you're not getting bogged down in common terms, which will pop up in those surface level answers you're going to get when you first ask a question. Where the real magic happens is when you get below that surface level and start getting those cool and spicy takes by asking those kinds of follow-up questions that get you that answer. If you're worried about keeping notes and tracking information, use something like Otter AI or Grain to record the meeting automatically, and it'll produce notes and summaries for you so that you don't have to feel like you're fastidiously taking notes at every single thing your person's saying. Of course, get their permission before you use a tool like that, but once you have it, you will have a good resource to go back up some of the points they're making or go dig deeper later on. Instead, you want to use that time with them to dig deeper into the takes they have. So they'll give you some kind of surface level thing. It's your job to get deeper into that and figure out what's behind it, where is that coming from, is this really going to be something interesting that's going to catch media's attention. The most powerful follow-up questions are, why is that the case, and can you give me an example of that? So if you're nervous about using these kinds of follow-up questions, keep these two in your back pocket, and as you hear natural breaks in the conversation with your subject matter expert, break them out and try asking them a few questions like that. The last thing I have on this one is don't be afraid to ask follow-up questions. Most of why these questions don't get asked in the first place is we're afraid of looking dumb or ill-informed or like we're not paying attention. But most folks want to hear you have that kind of a conversation with them. These kinds of interviews should feel more like conversations. That's how we know we're doing a good job, is when you're building that rapport. And that rapport comes from actively listening and asking questions about what you're hearing. So move past that fear. A good client won't get upset with you when you're asking these kinds of follow-up questions. It's not that you're ill-informed, it's that you want to really understand from their point of view what the world looks like. That leads to producing better pitches, better content, and having a better understanding of the relationship between your client's company and the media landscape at large. As always, thanks for watching. Appreciate it, gang. We'll see you soon for the next Wednesday Word.